Um, Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about some, or let's say one untold truth about coming to Canada to study that most people won't even tell you. Um, it's very serious. Um, a lot of people won't say this to you, but I feel compelled to. Because I think if you're trying to get yourself into something, you get to know maybe not the whole truth, but most of the truth about what you're trying to get yourself into. Coming to Canada to study is a good venture. It's a good thing because of all the perks attached to it. But on the flip side of it, it may not be so good. A lot of people come to Canada to study, and they spend a lot of money and all that. I mean, people are still going to keep coming to Canada, spending that money because of the education, the level of the education, right? They're trying to get good education, get good certificates so that they can get good jobs. For most of it, it's not really, I'm tempted to say it's not really worth it, but that could be just one perspective of it. Because a lot of people get permanent residencies, okay, and they come to Canada. And when they come to Canada, they struggle to get jobs. The students finish studying and they struggle to get jobs, right? That's not to say that people don't get jobs. People do get jobs, but the percentage of people who struggle to get jobs is higher than the percentage of people who get it, who actually go ahead and get it. Now, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. I just want to go straight into what it is I want to talk about, which is one of the struggles that people go through when they come to Canada to study, or when they move to Canada as permanent residents or something, that most people aren't talking about when it comes to jobs. Now, you're a professional. You're a dentist, you're a pharmacist, you're accountant, you're a whatever it is your profession is, right? You move to Canada, and with the hope that once you get to Canada, you're going to get a job. Maybe as a pharmacist, you're going to get a job. I'm sorry to bust your bubble, because that might not happen. There's a high chance that won't happen. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from coming to Canada or, applying for their permanent residency through express entry and all that stuff. That's all good. But if you eventually make your way down to Canada, you need to brace up for a few things. One of which is the fact that you might not be able to get a good job, especially in your field. So you're a pharmacist, you're a medical doctor, you're, whatever your field is, accountant, engineer, all that kind of stuff. Be ready not to get a good job in your field. Doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. It doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. There is 80% chance that you're going to struggle to get a good job. And then you will end up doing some silly jobs that could even send you into depression. Because in your wildest imagination, if someone told you you would find yourself doing that kind of job, you would never believe it. So, now, what I just want to say is, if you're coming to Canada, you're a professional, You're coming to Canada with your family and everything. Make sure you have a lot of money. Make sure you have enough money to take care of yourself and your family for at least a whole year comfortably. So we're talking about feeding, accommodation, probably getting yourself a car, fueling the car, like day-to-day stuff. Make sure you have enough money. Getting a car is, or depending on the city where you live, could be a necessity. Because if you live like in a rural area, then transportation is not reliable. So you need a car. Especially if you have kids, you need to take them to school, bring them back from school, school runs, do shopping, all that kind of stuff. You need a car. If you're in a city, you might not need a car. They have the bus system. But if you look at the inconvenience that comes with hopping on a bus and hopping off a bus, you might want to get your own car. And then if you now consider the traffic on the road, you might now start thinking of not wanting to buy a car. So it's two-sided. If you decide to live in a city, suburban areas, those areas are fairly okay. You can decide to have a car. You can decide to hop on a bus. It's not much traffic. And the buses could be regular, could be irregular. So best case scenario, get yourself a car. Now you're looking at getting yourself a car. Once you arrive, you need to get a car. You need to have enough money to get your accommodation going, and then feeding, and then clothing as well, right? For yourself and your family. Right. Now you're looking for a job. If you go look for a job in your profession, 80% chance you're not going to get that job. No one is going to tell you why. But it's obvious that the reason you're not able to get the job is because whatever experience that you have or wherever you've studied in the past, you didn't do your study in Canada. It wasn't in Canada. Your work experience, you didn't get it in Canada. So they seem to kind of discredit all of those experiences and all of those certificates that you have. On very rare occasions, people get those jobs in their field of, training. Very rare occasions. Maybe the company is really pressed for a staff to fill that position and you happen to show up and there's no other person, that qualifies enough to take up that position. Then there's no choice but you, right? But if there's a choice, you're not getting it. This is my opinion, right? I've spoken to a lot of people. I've spoken to medical doctors. I've spoken to pharmacists. I've spoken to people in the engineering field. People are having the same issues. Doesn't matter your field of. I've spoken to people who have PhDs, who have done a lot of research, and they come into Canada, and it's a different story. Now, how do I know that? It's the companies that are doing this thing, or the country that's doing this thing. They're not recognizing your past experiences or your previous study. And that's because when you probably you've had a PhD before from a different country, and you come in and you're trying to look for maybe a researcher's job at a university or somewhere, at a company, research center. Now they see your certificate and it's not from Canada. Your school of study is not in Canada. They prefer another candidate. And then they say to you, if only you could go back and maybe redo your PhD. I've had people who had such experiences. They were advised to go redo their PhD. People who are pharmacists, who are doctors, they had to go redo. Like the pharmacists had to keep writing their exams, hoping to pass. But they never got the shot. They never got the shot at a job. you know, and somehow when these companies do this, I kind of understand. It's weird. I kind of understand because you have a pharmacist who's coming from abroad into Canada, and then here in Canada we have students who are in school studying pharmacy. Different schools, so many schools. They're all graduating every year. There are graduates from every school every year. Now, these people went through the Canadian curriculum. And also they've been through the system. They've been there 4 or 5 years studying, graduated, and now they're looking for jobs as well. Just like you, the immigrant. You just landed, right? Now, who do you think, if you were a company, who do you think the company would go for? If you had a company, like, which of the candidates would you go for? Would you go for the fresh undergraduate who's gone through the Canadian educational system, gone through the Canadian educational curriculum and graduated, compared to somebody else who just came from outside of the country, studied somewhere else, different educational curriculum, and there might be slight differences here and there, which is why I believe every country just, they tend to stick to their own curriculum. They tend to stick to their own, students, employing their own students. So on one hand, I kind of don't blame the companies for what they do. And then on the other hand, I think it's not fair. Because most of these people have spent 10, 15 years of their lives study and work. They've gained work experience. It would only be fair if they got a job. Right? So now these people are forced to go back to school. The advice is go back to school. If only you can go back to school and do another study, then you just might have that opportunity to get a good job. Else you're going to end up with some job that you never ever thought you'd be able to do in your life. So a lot of people, even Canadians, are back to school. They're studying just so they can get very, very good jobs. Despite the fact that they're Canadians. They're immigrants, right? They weren't born here. Came here, stayed here, got their citizenship, however they got the citizenship. But the good job still is a problem. The way a lot of people escape getting these good jobs, the way they escape from doing all the menial jobs is by going back to school. Doesn't matter their age. They all go back to school. Go back to school. Most of them do undergraduate programs because with the undergraduate study, there's a higher chance you're going to get a job. If you go and do a master's degree program, that's going to be an issue for you. It might be an issue for you. Let me not say it's going to be an issue. Let me say it might be an issue for you if you go do a master's degree program. Because the master's degree program in that field already has undergraduate students that are also going to graduate that same year. The undergraduate students have all the foundational, teachings in that field. And they've been there for like 4 years doing the undergraduate study. You only came for a master's degree program, which is probably going to be for like a year and a half, at most 2 years. They've been there for 4 years. They've been taught the basics, the foundations, everything that they need to get into that entry-level position, which is what most of the companies are actually employing people for. You have a master's degree, you're telling them you're above that entry level. And then them employing you as an entry-level staff with a master's degree program doesn't kind of make sense to them. Because it feels like they're going to probably be underpaying you. Right? So they rather go for the guy who just graduated as with a bachelor's degree So what most people are doing is going back to school to study, to do undergraduate programs. That's what it is. It's gonna take you 3 years, 4 years, yeah. But that's what you're doing. So you're rushing down to Canada to do, or even as an international student, you're coming down from your country to do a 1 year program, a 2 year program. Yeah, you're going to finish the program. You're going to, probably apply for your, PGWP, and then your postgraduate work permit. But what job are you going to be doing with that postgraduate work permit? What job? Most people end up not working in their field of study. They do something else. And they start having problems. And before you know it, they're thinking of going back to school again. So a lot of people who start from their undergraduate, who go back to undergraduate programs, are kind of the ones that are getting it right. Despite the fact that they are probably old, or that, they've had experience in the past and all that, they're getting it right. The ones who are medical doctors and pharmacists, for them, what they do is they try to write their qualifying exams. They keep trying and they keep trying and so every year that you try, there are fresh graduates from med school that are also competing for the same position. So it becomes difficult for you, unless the province you're in, or the city and the province that you're in, are desperately in need. But first you need to pass the exam. A lot of people are struggling passing the exams. Some people pass, but a lot of people are struggling. And it's so expensive, those exams. So expensive. So it's just for you to brace up and know that if you get a permanent residency, and you and your family are allowed to come to Canada as permanent residents, and you're thinking you're going to come and you're going to get a job and everything's going to be rosy, and no, it's it might not happen that way. Let me not say it's not going to happen that way, because we're all different, right? We all have different we're all lucky in different ways. Let me just put it that way. There's a very high chance that what you think is going to happen when you come here, which is getting a good job and everything, just might not happen for you and for your spouse. It might not happen. So you have to brace up for that. Have at the back of your mind that you might have to go back to school to do a program, a relevant program, that's going to help you get a good job in a field that is well sought after, a field where they're looking for workers, not just any field. You're not going to go back to school and study just any program. You need to figure out which area are companies looking for people, where they wouldn't consider your race, they wouldn't consider where you're from, they wouldn't consider any accent, they wouldn't consider, I'm not trying to say they're racist or anything, no, but I'm just trying to say where they wouldn't have to consider if you're white or you're black or whatever, just because they are desperate for workers. There is jobs, but there are few people to take up those positions. So when you show up and say, I have this certificate to work in this area, straight away they're going to take you, because they're looking for people to work in that area. And this is a health area. In the area of healthcare, they're looking for a lot of people, a lot of nurses. That's just one area. But you have to be ready to go back to school. That's what it is. Some people don't have to. They get lucky, they get a job, but in very, very highly regulated occupations, there is not like 90 to 95% chance that you'll have to go back to school. because the occupation is highly regulated. You need a license to actually work, and that license you cannot get with a certificate that you did outside of the country. You'll have to go back to school. That's the sad truth. A lot of people are not talking about this, but I feel like I need to say it. I feel like it's an obligation that I owe people who are trying to come down here, because I've already experienced it. I've gone through it, and I believe people should also get to know about this. So, like, get ready. If you're coming down to study, if possible, do an undergraduate program. If possible. I know it's going to take you 3 years, 4 years. If possible, do an undergraduate program. If you're coming as a permanent resident with your family, get ready. You might have to go back to school. One of you might have to go back to school. That's the sad truth. But that's what's happening. Everyone is going through it. All right, I don't intend to make this video too long. It's already getting too long. It's more than 20 minutes now. So I'll have to stop here. I'll keep, from time to time, I'll make videos like this just to, keep people abreast of what's happening, and also enlighten people more about, how things are like here in Canada. Because the way a lot of people talk about Canada isn't really the way it is. I'm not saying it's all that bad. But there are like certain fundamental things that people should know, but a lot of people aren't talking about it. So from time to time, I'm going to make videos like this just to enlighten people, let them know what they're trying to get themselves into before they get into it. All right. Okay. I'll see you on the next video. Take care and bye-bye.